not least, we have Rosa Schmidt. She's a regional consultant with the Center for Energy Workforce Development. Rosa has been a regional consultant with the Center for Energy Workforce Development for over 10 years and serves as advisor and lead consultant for the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, South, and Southeast regions of the country. She provides coaching to companies and the consortia on strategy and workforce development solutions. She also leads the Troops to Energy Jobs initiative at CEWD, as well as managing the contractor community of practice. Welcome, Rosa. And with that, Rosa, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. I'm going to speak about specifically starting off about our CEWD Gaps in the Energy survey that we do every year. But before I get started on that preliminary results and some of the issues that the industry is facing, I'd like to just, for those that might not be familiar with CEWD, just talk a little bit about who we are. If we can go to the next slide, please. So CEWD was formed in 2006, and we are a not-for-profit, and we are a consortia, a national consortia of electric, natural gas, nuclear organizations, utilities, as well as their associations, as well as contractors. And so we focus completely on workforce development, and the initiative was started in 2006 because what we realized is that over 50% of the workforce was going to retire. And the utilities across the US were all looking for talent, building that talent pipeline of skills necessary to meet those needs. And everybody was working on their own, doing their own thing and trying to figure out a solution. And everyone across the US was facing the same thing. So how do we come together? And it was the idea of two companies saying, let's come together and share what we're doing. And therefore, we now have a consortia. We represent about 95% of the utilities across the US, the electric, gas, and nuclear utilities across the US. We also have large number of contractors that we support that hire for the same talent, the same skill, and have some of the similar issues that everyone faces. And the associations, AGA, American Gas Association, Public Power, DCA, the distribution contractors, Edison Electric, and the rural cooperatives, as well as Nuclear Energy Institute, are all part of our organization and use the workforce development approaches and help us set strategy. So again, our focus is completely workforce development, and we started to expand our services in terms of the renewals, the electrical vehicle infrastructure, and energy storage, because a lot of the work that's being done by the utilities focus in that space. And so broadening that membership base to make sure that we focus. So some of the highlights: workforce development. We still work on career awareness, talent, building talent and a pipeline of talent, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is very important. And most recently, we've started to look at training and development and looking at training within the organization, both from bringing folks in as well as upskilling internally within the organization. Every year, every 2 years, we have implemented a Gaps in the Energy Industry survey, and we wanted to better understand the industry. And so we started the survey back in 2007, I believe, and we've been doing it every 2 years. And we did this last one that we just did was in 21, and the data was collected as of December 2020. And this is the only industry-wide data that really provides comprehensive numbers of the current and the future state of the electric and gas utilities. We've also done one for contractors that is being summarized right now. The results really provide statistical information for at the national level, the regional level, and even at the state level to determine workforce needs for the future. So what is the demand and what does the industry look like? And so we just process that data and have it. So I'm going to give you some highlights of the survey data that really focus on some of the key topics that we're focused on right now. Next slide. So next. So the workforce continues to get younger. So one of the things that we're finding, so let me tell you how many. We've got about 42 companies that participated this year, 17 nuclear utilities participated, and all of the rural cooperatives are in this data as well. And so it is a substantial number of companies that have participated. So 69% of the workers in the energy industry are either Gen X or millennials. So we're starting to see that a larger number of our workforce is on the younger side. 29% are baby boomers. And some of those within the next several years, 10 years or so, are going to start to retire and leave. Next slide. Next. Okay, so they're getting younger. And that's because retirement forecasts are dropping. So we're starting to see that retirement flatten out, where the retirements happened and there were some spikes. And we've seen a delay in the retirements due to the recession and due to COVID. And now we're starting to see they're picking up. And what we're seeing is a flattening of the retirement curve. Now, that's at the industry level. We understand that there are some companies that might still have a very high retirement number coming up. Certain companies are still in certain areas of the business. But overall, we're seeing that flattening. However, what we're seeing is non-retirement attrition go up. So it went up 2% in 2 years. And that's a big number for the utility. We were at 13%. Our non-retirement attrition is now 15%. I still remember the time when we were in the single digits and people would start with our company and leave from our companies. So let me tell you what the turnover numbers look like, because 64% of folks leave within the first 5 years. So think about the impact on the industry when you have almost 70%, 65% of the population that you hire, and you spend time and energy to educate and train, and within the first 5 years, they're walking out the door. So major issue for our companies. We're also seeing that an increase in turnover, that 2%, of people with more than 10 years of service. Now, typically we didn't see that number pretty high because people, once they're 10 years of service, they're tenured and they hang in there. What we're starting to see is that people with more than 10 years of service are starting to leave the utility. And about 19% of those folks are leaving the organization. So a pretty significant number. And almost half of those are between the ages or over the age of 53. So, and 43% are between the ages of 38 and 52. So we're starting to see it's not just the younger generation, we're starting to see that attrition happen in folks that are older as well. And it's the Great Resignation. You've probably heard of that over the past year with COVID, and we're starting to see that hit the utility industry. So it's a major impact on us for the utility to really, and we're focused on that to say, why is this happening? And how do we prepare for that? Next. We've also seen a slight uptick in the number of women and minority hiring that the companies have focused in. I'm going to show you the numbers of the distribution of women and minorities in the companies. However, the uptick in the hiring process, we've seen a slight uptick, not tremendous, but a slight uptick. We're also seeing veteran hiring has gone down, and there's been a downturn. But that is a national trend. And what we believe is that veterans are retiring from the industry. And so the number of veterans that we have in the industry has declined because they've been retiring. And so, but the national trend, we'll start to see, the national trend is also of the number of veterans in the labor force has gone down dramatically. So we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. Next. And we're starting to see, obviously, coal jobs dwindle, and we'll see more of that with the new legislation and the clean energy. But we're seeing line worker numbers go up. We're seeing renewable jobs increase. And I think with the new bill and the infrastructure bill that came out, I think we're going to see a lot more of an increase in some of these roles and other roles within the industry. Okay, next. So let me here's the workforce composition. So we're seeing 8% of our industry are veterans. Now, last survey we did, it was 9.6%. So we've seen a drop of about 1.6%. However, if you look at the national average and you look at the veterans, the percentage of veterans in the labor pool right now, it's about 5.2%. So we are still trending pretty high compared to the labor force out there. In terms of women, we are about 22%, and we do have further breakdown of where the women are, et cetera, but I'm not going to share that at this point. But 24%, we were at 24% in 2019. So we've seen a decline in the workforce composition, but even though we've seen an increase in the hiring of women. So we're probably losing a few more than what we're bringing in, but the hiring has gone up, even though the workforce composition has gone down. In terms of minorities, we've seen an increase. So in 2018 or 2019 survey, the number was at 22%, and the minorities now are 24%. So we've seen an uptick in the workforce composition. Next slide. So let me just share some of the big conversations that the utilities and the contractors, the energy companies across the US are having that are our priorities for 2022 and this year. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think that's at top of mind, and we've done a lot of work to focus on equity. Diversity and inclusion has always been a key priority, but the equity piece we've built into our assessments and some of the tools and resources that we have, our strategic planning tool for diversity, equity, and inclusion, looking at everything with that equity lens. Decarbonization and the future of the energy workforce. So what does it mean? How is it impacting? And more importantly, how is it impacting the jobs and the future of energy? Training has been something that has really been a key priority. In the past it was, but I think this, with COVID and the pandemic, we have seen a real focus on virtual reality. How do we digitize? How do we accelerate the training so that people become proficient more quickly? Reskilling and upskilling the current workforce, especially with the decarbonization. But even so, with the technical changes that are happening in technology, it's coming so fast that how do we reskill and upskill folks a lot faster? Building that skilled, diverse talent pipeline that has always been a priority, but now even more so. And if you tie that with the next to last bullet, which is finding enough talent, there's not enough talent out there. There's a lot of people that are unemployed, but they're not matching the skills that we need. And career awareness is a big gap because people don't know about the great careers that we have. And so we're losing folks with the Great Resignation, and that's creating a void. Plus, we're still trying to educate and build the pipeline at the young generation with the high schoolers, with the middle school, to get them prepped and understand that the industry is a great industry, a great one to be in. And so some of those things. And so looking at partnerships also with the educators and community-based organizations, linking back to diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as the enough talent and building the pipeline. But working with educators and working with these community-based organizations, we're working at the national level with the Urban League to strategize. How do we start to skill a population that can be so powerful and impactful and really meet the needs of the industry? And how do we do this at the national level to get across the US? So to really support our members. So I'm going to stop here, and I guess I don't know if we want to take questions or go to the next. And I know that many of our member companies have really been focused on many of these, and they have been diligent on, they have some great best practices and have done some great work on starting to address some of these gaps. So I'll stop here.
Thank you, Rosa, so much. So as a large panel, we're gonna do a moderated Q&A, which means we'll go ahead and have some questions and have each presenter talk a little bit. Encourage you all to provide any questions that you may have. But here on the screen are kind of the main topics that we're going to hit on. So please hop in at any time. Rosie, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but if the others can touch on how your specific company or you feel the industry is responding to diversity, equity, and inclusion concerns. Go ahead and start with Ben.
So I will say we are starting to see across all of our programs, including our energy sector programs, we're having a lot more female and minority participation, which we are excited about. Because of our setup of, we pretty much take a traditional student right out of high school is most of our student body, so we don't see many veterans. We're very open to that idea. If we could find a way to get them here, we're happy to train them, but as of now, we have a very limited number of veterans. We do have some, but most of our diversity is coming in as females and minorities.
Okay, Nicole?
Yes. So for Spire, a lot of our diversity and inclusion is coming from our field ops area. We've seen a major uptick in that area primarily, and that is due to just some of the programs and initiatives that we have going on, and then just being intentional about how we're recruiting, you know, where we're sourcing our candidates, building our relationships with community-based organizations and professional-based organizations to really be mindful and intentional about the skill craft area. So we're still seeing a uptick in that specifically. And then also with more of the professional level, specialist, entry level, we have, again, we're focused on probably more of the entry level, getting that diversity pool pulled up in that area as well, so.
Fantastic. Kimberly.
Good morning. Yeah, diversity, DE&I is one of our key focuses right now, and anything that we're doing from a workforce development perspective, we are making sure that it has a DE&I lens on it. So that goes to the partnerships that we're working with, ensuring that they're helping us infuse diversity into our company. Our programs are focused on trying to make sure that we've got very diverse cross-section of individuals that are coming in and being developed to come into the company. And then it doesn't start there. We have to work on what is going on inside of the company to make sure that we've got the right support systems and groups so that people, once they're even on site, have the development that they need, they feel engaged and they feel like part of the company. So we've done a lot of work around ERGs and continuous development for our coworkers as well.
All right, we did get a question in, and that question was, have you all seen how the vaccine mandates are affecting your ability to retain existing workforce or retain or bring on new employees?
So at Spire, you know, it hasn't really been a major impact. I'm sure there's conversations that employees have amongst themselves, but we have a task force that has been in place since the pandemic has started, that has a really strong focus on that and being mindful of the population of employees that we have and being sensitive around that. There are mandates, we know, and I know the task force, I'm not part of that, but I get a lot of updates and information because my manager actually is part of that task force. And I think that, you know, as we look at how we're moving forward, we're going to keep in mind, you know, how does that fit into the culture of Spire, and, you know, being able to look at the needs of everyone, but also being able to be compliant with what is asked of us. But yes, there is a lot of attention on that. We have not seen a major impact. Our field operations have always been first responders. So, you know, they've always been, you know, things in the forefront of their minds of how work needs to be done and handled.
Anyone else want to address that issue? Okay. So the next question we have deals with the decarbonization future. What impacts are you seeing with decarbonization efforts and commitments having on workforce development? Each of you kind of work in a different sector of energy, but how are you seeing that particular trend impact retaining and recruiting? We'll go Kimberly first.
Sure. As we're looking at it, we're trying to be very intentional as we're looking at our energy centers that we may be retiring in the future years, looking at how do we reskill some of those coworkers so that they can take other roles within the organization, so that we are still keeping our workforce being true to them, and then looking at what other skill sets do we need, and building those into some of the pipeline programs that we have and some of the relationships we have with education and other partners external to Ameren to make sure we have that new future workforce ready and available.
Nicole?
So same here. We have actually a project that we're looking at that or has actually started as far as project ready. You know, how are we being ready as a workforce to do the things that we need to do, you know, and being skilled to take on, you know, the technology that's needed. We also have an area that's focused on that specifically as we speak. So yes, there's a lot of focus around that and how we're doing our business.
Okay. Ben?
Yeah, so we have a new program going live here on campus, Energy Technology, next fall, starting to get some people admitted into that program, so it's going to be a go. That program is intentionally designed with a broad scope so that we can follow the industry, and wherever that energy, wherever production goes, whatever path as a country or as a state that we take, we are putting graduates out there to meet that need regardless of what kind of power generation it may be. So that was kind of the intent of this program, with the flexibility to feed wherever the market goes. So.
All right, Rosa, anything to add?
Yeah, I did want to just add a comment. We are working, and we've been working with Deloitte on a couple of projects, a couple of the consulting firms, Deloitte, Diversity Inc., as well as Accenture. But we do have in our goals for next year to start to look at knowledge, skills, and abilities for the workforce, the energy careers of 2035. So really looking at 2035, what does that look like? Because a lot of our members are really struggling to say, you know, with technology and the way that things are changing, we don't know what that's going to look like and what are this knowledge and skills that they need. And so we are going to be working on some foundational, developing some tool and resources and an assessment that we better understand and be able to put out there, as well as a competency model of the worker of the future.
Well, great. I think that goes really well into our next set of questions here, which has to deal with the training tools being used to develop the skills needed for this sector. I don't know, Ben, if you want to kick that off a little bit, and then we'll go to the other panelists.
Yeah, so I mean, State Tech, we have historically already fed a lot of people into the energy sector, whether it be our lineman program. So we've recently scaled that program. We put 50 linemen out a year now. We have a new utility systems technology. I don't know if you all are aware of that or not. It's a few years old. That program started taking 25 students. Now we take 50 students, and it's utilities across the board, both overhead and underground, broadband, gas, water, the whole spectrum there. We've always had a nuclear program that takes about 20 students. This new idea we started with an idea with a power generation program. We switched the name because of the way the future looks, maybe getting away from the fossil fuels. We thought maybe the word energy technology would be better. Been working with industry to figure out what is that skill set, what particularly do you need, because we are not in the business of just coming here and taking kids' money. The only programs we build are ones that we know we're filling a need in industry and that we can also hook somebody up with a good career. So moving forward, we are open for any input on what skill sets are, what the state needs, and we will do everything we can to put that product out, because that's what we do.
Great. Nicole, anything to add?
So, with the reskilling and upskilling, Spire is always looking at that. We of course, we have an educational assistance program that many employees tap into to go for recertifications or certifications in areas that they may not have had previously. We also have a very strong talent development department that really looks at, the industry, what's needed, and really being able to bring some of that training in-house, as well as doing some utilizing consultants to do some of that training and getting skills up. They also have built relationships with universities from that end, in schools, to be able to partner and get to be able to partner with them and be able to utilize and tap into those different skill sets that we need for our existing employees.
Fantastic. Kimberly?
I would say very similar to some of the things that Nicole talked about. I think over the past positives from the pandemic, I think we've had a lot of opportunities to try out virtual learning in different ways, real-time or just-in-time learning. So we are really leaning into that piece of it, looking at some of those skills that we know, regardless, we're going to need, from the technology skills to agility. So we're really trying to lean into some of those to make sure that we're helping prepare the workforce as the workforce continues to evolve throughout time.
The pandemic.
Great. Rosa?
So just want to mention that with CEWD, what we've done, we have a training community of practice that focuses on technical training. And it's the sharing, the learning from one another, best practices, et cetera, and really working through the nits and gnats and the detail. But we also have a chief learning officer community of practice, and they are very, very interested in this VR, virtual reality, and accelerating training. And so we are starting to have discussions around, is there something that the utility industry can pull together to say, we all need this. Why should every company create their own? Is there something that we can create that's virtual that every company can use, and we fund it, and it'll be much cheaper to do it that way? So we're starting to think about those lines. So we just did an assessment that we're pulling together. We've got some data, and we're going to be starting to look at that to see if it makes sense. Especially with the new generation coming in, they want VR, they want the cool technology. And so attracting that, so that they see us as a cool industry to join.
So you bring up a good topic in our next section here. We look at the, I guess, what type of skills and education are needed in this sector and the gaps that need to be filled. To me, as an attorney, not quite a Luddite, but definitely someone who doesn't have to work with his hands. Can you talk about the type of student and the relation to me, it seems a lot of technology and STEM related stuff, but STEM doesn't usually fall in the line of, being a lineman or working that way. Can you all talk a little bit about the connection between that STEM and the technology that's needed to work in your fields and the gaps that are needed to be filled or misconceptions, I think is the word I wanted to say. Ben, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I think misconception was a good word to use there. So I think our biggest challenge is getting the message out there that, historically, this is going to sound bad, but as a technical college, I think we were the place where you thought you sent people who were not academic. You know what I'm saying? You're not academic, maybe you can do something with your hands. We'll send you to a tech school. That is no longer the case. Somebody that is academically sound and also wants to use their hands can be unbelievably successful in any of these careers, among other careers out there. It's just a matter of getting to the people who are looking for a career, whether it be young people or people at any point in their life, and letting them understand that this is an unbelievable opportunity to go anywhere you want to go with it. If you're not an academically sound person and you like your hands, there's still a good place for you, and you still have a heck of a career opportunity there. But also some people who others might want to gear towards a 4-year college and a career that requires a 4-year degree. You could do a lot more in these hands-on skills with either a 2-year degree or in some cases not a degree at all. So I think it's a messaging thing. We haven't necessarily figured out how to win that game yet, but I do think things are moving in our direction. We're seeing a lot different quality of students coming to the college here is what we did 20 years ago, just as they see people being successful, you know what I'm saying, being able to provide for your family. So all that stuff is swinging our way. And I think it will continue to, but overall, the reason those opportunities are there and why it pays so good, I guess, is because there's not enough people willing to jump on and do it. So it's kind of a never-ending thing, I think.
Interesting. That's really good to know. Nicole?
Yeah, I think that's great, Ben. You mentioned that because if I had to, from this angle, from a business, on the business side, that having students to go through a program such as, even skilled craft jobs, but being able to speak on or teach on the technology side is huge because, just evolving as an organization, we have an actual innovation center that's constantly thinking about how can we be doing things differently and staying on the cutting edge of technology. And that includes everybody. That's not just your office type work, but it's also our field operations. We have a lot of technology that the field has to use, whether it's from drones or whether it's utilizing a computer system in their trucks, just different things and different methods to do business better. And so that's a learning curve. It's a change management that we've had to face over the past few years with individuals who never ever had to use technology before, but now are having to do that. So having that mixed skill or that dual skill, if you will, is really a great way to get into the industry. It really is, because that is where we're leaning. That's where I think a lot of organizations are leaning with having technology, even in the field, to streamline processes, getting rid of waste, and just being more efficient and effective in the way we do business. So yes, it's absolutely needed, and it is something that our organization is looking at and has had to lean in to do over the past few years with new technology.
Great. Kimberly?
I think if anybody's heard me talk about STEM, or I should say skilled craft, you will hear I truly believe that STEM is involved in skilled craft. If you think about, if you've even done any type of DIY work at your house, think about the math skills that you have to be able to coordinate and thinking about what's your right angles. It is all embedded in there. And I think the misconception that you guys have already said, it's absolutely there. And the more that we get into the technology and the industry continues to evolve, the more those folks are going to need it. And to Nicole's point, I mean, the computers, those high-tech computers that they have installed in their cars right now, the work that they need to be doing in the field that is tech-based, the IT, the OT, all of that is coming together. And so I would wholeheartedly argue that folks that are working out with their hands are STEM folks at this point in time, and it will only become more apparent over the years. And so we continue to focus that way. We help educate where we can within the CTE schools that we work with, trying to help parents recognize that, and that just because their kid is great at math, science, technology, doesn't mean that they can't go into a field that is literally out in the field. And so helping parents and educators recognize that and see that there are amazing career paths if somebody's not interested in sitting at a desk every single day.
Absolutely. You know, one of the other things that I was going to mention is that with, you know, there are assessments, you know, for a lot of these field operation areas, not just, you know, it's about, you know, being able to assess and having those math skills, like Kimberly mentioned, to even be looked at for some of the technician positions. They have to have even just your basic high school of algebra and trigonometry and things like that. So that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, Rosa, any additional thoughts?
Just, well, the parent piece is so critical.
Yeah.
So critical, because they think students need to go to college. And there's just so much opportunity. And I've seen parents just switch once they learn of the opportunities in the industry and the growth opportunity, because they can come into one position and really grow from there. So having them work with their hands, but we've revamped our entire career awareness, and that's why career awareness is so important, and starting younger, middle school, so kids start to think about this, so that they start to learn, especially females, that maybe want to work with their hands. They're really good. They want to be outdoors, and they get driven in a different path. And so we've revamped our whole Get Into Energy website, where we're really trying to make it so that kids see how we are technology driven. It's cool. You know, it's cool to come and work for the industry, and the growth potential and the career pathways that there are. So I think that's important. And we've done a revamping, and that's our focus for next year, is really around how we change the messaging about the industry.
All right. Well, if I could give you, one last statement, one wish you think that would help you address any gaps or issues or concerns you have today for your company or your field, or in the next 5 years, let's have that be our closing thought. And we'll start, Kimberly.
Oh my, and you're going to call on me first. My mind is going to everything underneath the sun. I mean, off the cuff, like I was not prepared for this question. I think if I had one thing, I think it's just how we get the message out there about the amazing career paths, and really get that message to, everybody said it, to the females, underrepresented individuals within our communities that have a great military disabilities. There are so many amazing groups out there. How do we get those folks to recognize what is in this industry, the career paths that we have to offer, and helping them find the bridge to get them into our organizations is really the goal that we're looking for.
Great. Thank you, Nicole.
If I had a wish, there are a lot of programs out here about workforce development. And since I've had more focus over over the last couple of years, it can be overwhelming for even organizations. And so I'm sure it's even more overwhelming even for parents and students that may be interested in going down that path. So it would be ideal if there could be a larger umbrella of different community-based organizations, professional-based organizations to come together, because we all have the same objective. So if those, CBOs and professional-based organizations can come together and create a way for that messaging to get out there, I think that would be huge for both organizations as well as, like I mentioned, students, and also, students, educators, where they can tap into. I think that focus would allow us to cast our net a lot larger to parents in other places.
All right. Ben.
Okay, so in the past 6 years, our enrollment has grown by 50%. So one would think that would provide enough workforce to where some people can come close to keeping up, but that is not the case. So across all of our programs, when I talk to employers, they're telling me they have more work to get done than they have people to do it. So if you think about that I think that's something we should all be kind of concerned about. If we don't figure this out, who's going to do the work that keeps the state going and keeps the country going? At some point, it's going to be an issue. So I just hope that we're able to continue to grow and find a way to fill the need to where we can keep things moving, because it takes a workforce to keep things moving, no doubt.
Absolutely. Rosa.
So I just want to build on what Ben said. The war for talent is out there. And so we need to get kids to say the energy industry is a viable career path, because very often they want to go to Google, to NASA, to, many of these other companies, and having us think a little differently about the workforce and how do we attract. We need the best and the brightest. These jobs are, if we're not here, the light switch will not, when they turn the light switch, it's not going to work. We're not going to have the power. So all the technology, everything that we're used to. And so they don't realize the importance of the energy industry until the lights go out and the powers go out. And so we are the heroes that are out there and getting that message out. But with the war for talent, we want every brightest that we can find, the brightest and the best. And they're very diverse, and we need to go out there and attract every single one that we can for our industry. And so I think focusing on community-based organizations, focusing in on veterans. Veterans are very, very, very diverse. And so I would encourage everyone to consider even looking at the veteran population, working with your community-based organizations in your backyard who are upskilling and building that skill level of those folks to be able to make them competitive and apply. They don't even know our jobs exist. And so part of it is getting these community-based organizations to communicate that to these communities that have the talent that we need.
Well, I hope you all agree with me that I think we could probably have this session go on for about another hour. And what I find maybe disheartening or heartening, I'm not really sure, is that I know that at this conference more than 5 years ago, we had a similar discussion about the workforce need in the energy area. And that was before the Great Resignation and everything along those lines. You all in this field have seen the trend of retirements and been trying to find ways to resolve that, to collaborate and partner with folks like Ben, developing your own programs that you mentioned here. And know for the audience, these four are absolute leaders in this field. Their organizations are. There are others that we spoke to who we couldn't, organize the time to participate, but there are more things out there. Definitely encourage you to look for them. Check out the organizations and the projects that the speakers have talked about. We will try and share more once we have it, but it is definitely an issue we want to resolve because, as Rosa mentioned, they may not care about the light switch, but when their phone doesn't charge, their car doesn't charge, that's another issue that they're going to be concerned with. So thank you all very much. When the heat's not on, coming up, we had a nice little cold snap here. That's going to make a difference. But with that, thank you all very much for participating today. Greatly appreciate the work that you do and the time you take and share with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that leaves us for tomorrow. We have our second day of the conference. Really excited. If you're interested in electric vehicles, we will be presenting for the first time the white paper that was just completed on Missouri's electric vehicle charging infrastructure. We will have a session focused on that, about the paper, as well as the different stakeholders working in that area. We will also hear from